Well, it's been a while, but we're finally back with the Season 7 SpongeBob ranking. And I have to say, watching this abysmal season made me very scared to continue this series of ranking SpongeBob episodes because it was painful. Which is why it took me so long. I couldn't watch more than 4 episodes a day. Sorry it took me so long, but hey, I need my sanity as well. But we're done, so let's just get this over with.
I hate them.
Me too, Squidward. Me too. Alright, yours, mine, and mine. The last place spot wasn't really explained, so let's explain the next spot. A pal for Gary. This episode, while being excruciating and incredibly stupid, is a SpongeBob episode. I don't take it too seriously, and I respect that there is effort into these lesser received episodes. I don't think it is an animated atrocity, just not that good. SpongeBob is super dumb in this episode and is just really unfair to Gary. When you make Gary, a snail who can't talk, the most likable in the episode, you know you messed up. Especially when the name of the show is in the episode. Someone's in the kitchen with Sandy is probably the most I've felt bad for a character in an episode. Sandy is literally naked without her clothes as people are laughing at her and are disgusted. It's just not right. I also hate the main idea of the episode. It's just weird. It's just a terrible episode. I don't like trench billies, so instead of talking about it, just watch this clip and see how you react. It's probably the same as me.
Well, Patrick, even though you won, it looks like he was the real star.
The scent of money is definitely the most greedy Mr. Krabs has ever been in the show. And once again, I feel bad for Gary. It's not lower because there's a lot of creativity and some visuals are cool, but mostly it's very hard to watch. I hate the way Big Sister Sam portrays Patrick's sister. She's like a gorilla or something, and the design is hideous. I do like that Squidward and SpongeBob both have common sense in this one, especially SpongeBob. That was refreshing.
That's the spirit.
He acknowledged that Patrick's sister is being super destructive and crazy. The problem is that Patrick has such an overwhelming amount of stupidity that it cancels out all of the smart stuff. Growth Spout is actually considered to be one of the better mid-season SpongeBob episodes, and I don't get it. Pearl is literally portrayed as this hideous monster. To me, this episode is a perfect representation of how Pearl is treated in SpongeBob. Just a symbol of puberty. And it's ironic that the symbol of puberty has no development and interesting stuff happen with her development. You know, because puberty is literally about growing up. But Mr. Krabs is good in this one, I guess. This episode is not very good in my opinion. Whelk Attack is just an extremely forgettable episode. The Whelks are such forgettable creatures that will never be remembered. The only way they will be is because of their attempt at replicating the Alaskan bullworm. This is just an overall bad episode with no good things in it. You Don't Know Sponge is just so painful to watch. It makes me feel bad for SpongeBob, which has happened before. But to have it happen because of Patrick, his best friend, is just very frustrating. Rewatching every episode really reminds me of how bad Patrick is as a friend. I never thought he was a good friend, but he's even worse than I thought. Also, this episode has no good jokes at all. Rodeo Days might be the ugliest SpongeBob episode of all time. Every live action scene looks like it was made in 5 minutes. The song part at the beginning was way too long for not even being creative in the first place. A lot of people have this at the worst spot, but I think the ones lower are way worse than this. There are some enjoyable moments in the episode, and I won't deny it's creative. It's just lazy and very poorly written. Also very ugly. Shellback Shenanigans is one example of SpongeBob just being a stupid and extremely frustrating character. This isn't the only episode in the season where he falls for a dumb disguise. This looks nothing like Gary, not even close. If SpongeBob thinks it does for some reason, he's just dumb, and nobody in Bikini Bottom should trust him. Also, Plankton is very out of character in this episode, which is kinda weird. Karate Star started off pretty interesting, and had some potential to be a pretty good episode. Patrick doing karate. Oh yeah, that's epic. Nope, he just destroyed the entire city and became a public threat to everyone. Exactly what we wanted. And if that isn't bad enough, it ends up being that it's not even his fault. His arm did it? Like, what does that even mean? Such a weird ending, and it's in such poor taste. Summer Job is an episode that gets hated a lot more than it should. I don't think it is as insufferable as many fans think. It's definitely not good. Mrs. Puff does not have anything that's interesting in this episode. No interesting lines or moments at all, despite the fact that she's the main part of the episode. This one is not the worst episode, but it's definitely very boring, and most of that is because it just doesn't do anything well with Mrs. Puff. I think the majority of fans agree that SpongeBob's Last Stand is a terrible special episode. It sounds pretty cool. SpongeBob and Patrick try and prevent a highway from being built by doing activist stuff. But everything is just so lazy and weird. It just doesn't feel like there was a lot of effort put into this so-called special. The two songs are a repeating jellyfish song the entire time, and naming random things that rhyme. Yeah, definitely not the best special episode. Literal to no creativity at all. Who decided to make an entire episode focused on the most annoying part of the show? His crying. There was no chance of making this good. And considering that, it's pretty impressive that this episode isn't even lower than it is. It's this high mostly because Squidward is pretty funny, but still it's not good at all, because SpongeBob's laugh and tears are literally the two most obnoxious things in this show, and they made entire episodes of them. This one is even worse than the other one though. The main drain is just so boring. So many episodes in Season 7 feel like filler, even if the entire show is technically filler. This episode is so uninteresting and forgettable. SpongeBob and Patrick look for a drain. If you want me to say more about this episode, I literally can't because nothing else happens. Literally nothing happened. Grandma's Secret Recipe is the same type of episode as Shellback Shenanigans. Plankton disguises as someone that SpongeBob knows, or is supposed to know, and this one might be more frustrating, but it was kind of funny. The fact that SpongeBob thinks a 1mm tall creature is his grandma is just so dumb that it's kind of funny. It's still very bad though. What in the world happened in Model Sponge? Nothing. Only reason it's not lower is because of the commercial at the end. I love seeing the hand return, and it was overall pretty funny, but that was one scene, and it cannot fix an 11-minute episode of nothingness. Listen, Mr. Krabs is greedy. Saying that is like saying that SpongeBob is a sponge. I understand that much. But I refuse to believe he would stand in the same space for hours to make a shitty sculpture. Mr. Krabs is smart enough to know that Squidward is a dumbass and he cannot make anything good. This episode is also unfunny. Nothing good going on in the masterpiece. It is definitely not a masterpiece. The Plays the Thing is so painful. You think the episode is going to progress, but it never does. It's just 11 minutes of people interrupting Squidward's terrible play. SpongeBob's part is also painfully boring. Overall, this episode is just incredibly mediocre and just not fun to watch. I think that sinking feeling gets hated on too much by SpongeBob fans. I don't think it is as bad as a lot of Squidward torture episodes. It's definitely boring, but the whole underground atmosphere is very creative and I like it a lot. It reminds me of Chum Caverns. The problem is that every character pisses me off in this episode. It's basically just a Squidward torture episode with slightly better visuals, which is why it's not at the bottom. While I think Hide and Then What Happens is a 5 out of 10 average episode, I think it's pretty underrated. People have it at the bottom of their list, while I think it is very creative. There's a lot of bland spots and poorly written moments, but the idea of SpongeBob traveling the world looking for Patrick is pretty interesting, and Patrick Notstar is actually pretty funny. So yeah, this episode is not as bad as it is for everyone for me. I think it's a bit better than people give it credit for. We're almost halfway through. We finally have our first C-tier episode. The Great Patty Caper is such a meaningless special. There's so much junk in here that's just there to extend the length of the episode. But I do like the premise. SpongeBob and Patrick retrieving the formula on a train and racing with Plankton is very funny. And some great moments come out of it. But at the same time, there's a lot of filler in here, which holds it back from being even higher. We're halfway through the ranking, and the Curse of the Hex is up next. It's still not good. It's creative, but the hex is hideous to look at, and the ending is so dumb. The curse is a close sign. Like, come on, that's so dumb. There's some good visuals, but the episode is still just very forgettable as a whole. We're at the point where these episodes are just very average. Keep Bikini Bottom Beautiful is surprisingly good for an episode about picking up trash. The scenes where there's a lot of garbage are mostly disgusting, but SpongeBob and Squidward have a great dynamic. Squidward is a lot less grumpy than usual. He's pretty open and he doesn't get too mad at SpongeBob, which is pretty refreshing. It's still not a great episode though. A lot of the visuals are very disgusting, and it's kind of a weird premise as well, but definitely could be worse. Gary in Love is the epitome of no one cares. There's not a single thing interesting about this episode. Maybe it would be better if Gary and the girl snail had chemistry. Oh wait, that's impossible, because they are literally snails. Pearl is a teenager. SpongeBob is a middle-aged man. Tunnel of Glove, you really messed up with this one. I do like this joke though.
Stupid kid.
Hiya! Nice facilities. Great water pressure.
Neptune's mother!
I see a lot of people say that The Curse of Bikini Bottom is one of the better mid-teen SpongeBob episodes, but I disagree strongly with that. It has a pretty good premise, sure, but after the first few minutes when SpongeBob and Patrick become ghosts, it becomes incredibly forgettable. I think this episode could have been way better than it actually was.
Who put you on the planet?
The Monster Who Came to the Bikini Bottom is an okay episode. I like the idea of this creature coming to Bikini Bottom and befriending Patrick. It's pretty sweet, and dare I say, it was pretty cute. But they really did nothing with the premise. The highlight is this joke that had me laughing for a while. But other than this, it's kind of boring.
Excuse me, I think your ice machine's broken.
Keep looking. You'll find someone who cares.
Cracked Crabs is such a funny idea. Mr. Krabs going to a cheapskate competition is actually so good. It wasn't as good as I would have liked. It felt like there was something missing here. I guess SpongeBob kind of ruined it. It would have been better if it was just Mr. Krabs and his friends. But hey, we're starting to get better. For me, Sponge Cano is a C-tier episode, but a lot of people think it's one of the worst of the season. It's pretty interesting to see Squidward's depression actually be taken seriously from the other citizens of Bikini Bottom, even if they are trying to kill him. It's pretty refreshing. Squidward actually matures in this episode. He grows. What holds this episode back is a garbage man singing in the beginning. That was disgusting. Greasy Buffoons is disgusting. Competing for who can make the most grease is just absolutely disgusting, and it really sickens me. But Squidward vanishing is too funny, so I don't care. The inside job is basically Plankton. Yes, that's true. But to me it is on the same level as the original episode. It's more creative and has some legitimate good ideas that are shown. But it's just way too similar to another episode, so it can't be ranked any higher than this. Plankton is a legitimate main character, which is great. Everyone else is just a plot device, and that made me like it more. We're definitely going in the right direction right now for Season 7. Love That Squid is a sweet episode. I actually like Squilvia. She played off of Squidward very well. Seeing Squidward in a nervous and swoon state is so refreshing. I hope that more moments from these two happen in the show, because it made me happy to watch. SpongeBob is also great here. It's not higher than it already is, because I didn't like the ending. It's cool seeing how they have the same personality, but I wish that they were a bit different. Also, the School of Lame joke is very slept on. It actually had me laughing for a bit. Buried in Time is a very entertaining episode. Seeing all of these creative ideas for the future is so funny. Patrick was the best though. I also liked the way Plankton was incorporated so it wasn't too boring. There is a dry spot in the middle though, which just holds it back from the top 10. I honestly don't know what to say for New Fish in Town. I have the same opinions on this as I do Love That Squid. I like seeing Squidward develop a genuine relationship with others. If Howard was more interesting, this would have been higher. He's kind of boring. Welcome to the Bikini Bottom Triangle is a very entertaining and creative episode. The teenage girls are annoying, but I love the idea of everything being transported to a distinct area. There's such a cool vibe of mystery, and I love stories where people get separated and have to get back home. They're always a joy to watch. Overall, this one definitely could have been in the top 10. Abrasive Side is the episode kicking off my top 10. And I do think it is top 10, but it's not an amazing episode. It's a B tier episode. It would not be ranked as high in any other season. But it is definitely enjoyable. It's refreshing seeing SpongeBob stick up for himself to his friends who usually ask way too much for him. And Mr. Krabs having a fear of overtime is hilarious every time it comes on screen. Though I do think it was a dumb ending to just have Sandy rip off the abrasive side. It was kinda disappointing. Krusty Dogs is one of the most slept on mid-season SpongeBob episodes. It's actually very entertaining. There's a lot of funny moments, and SpongeBob and Squidward play off of each other very well. It's always refreshing seeing them pair up together, especially for stuff they both want to do. All of SpongeBob's techniques to try and get people to dislike the Krusty Dogs are super funny, and this joke is one of the best in the entire season.
Mom, look! It's a guy dressed as a Krabby Patty!
It's never too soon to start picking a good college, Billy.
Tentacle Vision is one of the most chaotic episodes in all of SpongeBob. Every character plays the role of just doing random stuff, and it's honestly hilarious to see everyone brought together in such a unique way. It's a breath of fresh air in such a forgettable season. The Guitar Lord is also a very funny character. The episode is definitely a very good episode, but I think the next 7 are a step above. A lot of people think that Perfect Chemistry is the best mid-season SpongeBob episode, but I don't think it's that good. I love unique pairings of characters, they always make for good moments, and Sandy and Plankton is one of the best possible ones. Every scene where SpongeBob scares Squidward with separated body parts is also hilarious. Sandy is such a good character in SpongeBob because she makes everyone around her better. Plankton is so entertaining here because he shares the same goal as Sandy, which is one of the main reasons this is so high. Earworm is such a good episode. It's actually relatable on a problem that everyone has. I mean, just yesterday I had this random song stuck in my head for the entire day and I could not get it out. I don't even remember what it was now, but I remember being obsessed with it. If the song in this episode was catchier, it would have been even higher. But seeing SpongeBob lose his mind on a song is so funny, and I like how it's an actual worm as well. I also like when Mr. Krabs just randomly started dancing, that left me cracking up. The Wreck of the Mauna Loa is an episode I used to be obsessed with when I was younger. I love the idea of finding a hidden pirate ship that they use as a secret base. I would have liked more pirate-themed stuff instead of an amusement park, but I just love the setting and the visuals. Maybe this is a bit of bias with my childhood, but I really do love this episode. I think most fans agree that Back to the Past is one of the better mid-season SpongeBob episodes. It's definitely one of the most creative. This episode is a movie. There's a legitimate overarching story with plot points and character development, and you will find yourself invested into how it ends, not just going along for the ride. And the end scene is one of the craziest moments of the show, and it's awesome. Man Ray being in it is also cool because he's one of my favorite characters. The Bad Guy Club for Villains is just a perfect superhero cartoon episode. There's a legit conflict with legit action, yet it never loses its ridiculousness and comedy factor. Superheroes and villains that are introduced are legitimately interesting and have creative powers. I also like the ending where the villains are just reading. It's cool that not everything they do is evil and they have actual lives. This is a very good episode, but the next 2 are in a league of their own. I would consider them even great episodes. Enchanted Tiki Dreams is definitely an episode that could land at number 1. In fact, I had it there for most of the time making this video. It drops down for me because of how terrible the first 3 minutes are. I know it's the point of setting it up, but my number 1 pick is amazing the entire time. This has the highest peak, but definitely has some boring moments. It's still so cool to see SpongeBob and Patrick set up this Tiki paradise just for Squidward's sake. The Tiki world is one of the coolest settings in the entire series. I also love the song in the middle. It's just a very positive and enjoyable episode. It was also a personal favorite of mine when I was younger. Squidward and Clarinetland is one of the most creative episodes in SpongeBob, if not the most creative. A lot of people think it's too crazy, which leads to it being bad, but for me, I love crazy stuff. And in a season of mostly dry and basic episodes, it sticks out with pure creativity. It's definitely not deep or anything like that, but it was one of the most enjoyable episodes in the series. One of the most fun times I've had watching every episode. Maybe it's just because the rest of the season sucked and it was a tiny bit of enjoyment. I love every visual that is included. The clarinet world that is shown, the Patrick scene, the part in the mirror. It's also creative and freaky, and it makes for one of the most creative and entertaining episodes of SpongeBob. Phew, glad that's over. Now I can go to the next season. Oh wait, it's season 8. Guess I'm gonna suffer watching cartoons for hours again. See you in a month.